Alright guys, Jay Browder Performance here. Here is this bolt together converter. Taking it apart obviously. And this has a ring gear that's welded to it. Kind of like a Chrysler or something. And if you look at this, ring gear's kind of worn out. So I've got to replace that. And what you got to do, you can buy the ring gear, and then what I'll have to do is flip this over here. I got to grind all these welds off and get the old ring gear off, then set the new ring gear and weld it back on. So it's, you know, a little bit of work. So anyways, got to do that. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of welding on these fins. I'm not going to go crazy. It's not a race car, but I just don't want the fins to ever loosen up on it. Everything's honestly pretty tight, you know, as old as it is. Everything's pretty tight, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do a little bit of welding on there. So this is your stator, and this is actually a sprag. If you see those eccentric looking cam rollers there, that's what a sprag is. One-way clutch or roller clutch, these are round. They're actually, you know, a round bearing that rides on a ramp, but these old sprags were like a eccentric, you know, like a cam of some sort. And you've got to be careful because this stator race, if you look, there's a recess there, and the spines go right to the end there. So you have to make sure you put this back together the right direction. And also on this sprag, the bad thing about these is you can flip them upside down, and the sprag, you know, or the one-way clutch portion of this, it'll rotate in the wrong direction and cause you problems. So be aware of all this before you take it apart. Mark everything so that you understand it. So what I'm going to do, another thing I'm going to do here, these are the caps that retain this sprag, and they fit very tight. So what happens is you don't get a good transfer of oil flow through it to lubricate this sprag. So sometimes these can get pretty chewed up. So I'm just going to drill some holes in this so oil can get in, and you know, fresh oil can always get into this thing. Newer converters have that done already usually. Not anything I invented, but okay, I'm going to drill some holes, weld some fins, and I'll show you that, I guess, and I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back again. So I didn't make a federal case out of this. This is not a high performance application or anything, and this is called the pump. This particular pump doesn't generally have a lot of problems coming loose, but I did put some welds in here just to make sure it stays in place, okay? Just as a precaution. And then I did that on this turbine too. Again, I didn't make a federal case out of it. It's not a racing application. We're not, you know, there's no trans brake, there's no nitrous, and it's not big power, none of that. So, okay, there's that. Now this here, this is your O-ring surface, so be careful not to mark that up. And this one, you know, I don't need to just clean this up a little bit. I gotta clean this whole thing still, but so just be careful of that. And then the stator here, I don't remember if I said this already or not, but you can see I put a hole here, and 180 degrees across I put another hole. And then on this side I did the same thing. Okay, and that's just to let oil get in there and lubricate that sprag. Now, a couple other things. All right, if you look at this, this part of the stator goes towards the pump. So that means it's going to drop in like this, okay? So I'm looking at the pump side, and you can see the difference between the way the fins look here and then the other side here, all right? So we're looking at this side. You want your counter bore here facing up the top, and then this race you want it to turn clockwise and lock up counterclockwise. So make sure that's very important, that this race turns clockwise and from this side of the stator, because if you flip it over it turns counterclockwise on the other side. So don't get confused. Alright, so that's important. That's all back together, ready to go. That sprag is in good shape. Just lubricated it, drilled the holes, washed it, and she's back together. Alright, so then you just have this metal washer that's going to sit here, and then this drops in like so, and then your turbine, or a lot of guys like to say turbine, which I don't typically say turbine, because to me that's something you wear on top of your head. I don't wear these on top of my head. I wear the turbine on top of my head, not the turbine. So you know, this doesn't have a lot of clearance. It's very tight. It's probably fine, but I don't see any signs of it scraping or anything. So just make sure that this doesn't scrape or anything. If it does, you have to do some shimming and things. There's washers you can buy for that. Hopefully you won't have to get into that, but if you do, you'll have to get those washers from a converter shop. This is, a lot of these were brass, but somebody may have replaced this. This is a phenolic washer, and that goes here. And these come in different thicknesses, so if the end play is really excessive, you can change that, but end play is not real critical in this unit. You know, typically the ones that are critical are the racing converters that have bearings in them. When you just have washers like this, you don't have to worry about it. And these, you know, that's just aluminum. That aluminum just rides on this steel, and that's the bearing on these. No fancy needle bearings or anything. Alright, so that's pretty straightforward. I haven't checked those clearances yet. I'll mess with that later. There's no stall change requested on this job or anything like that. So what I got to do now, I got to go and grind all these welds and try to get this ring gear off. So let me go and do that, and I'll be back. Not looking forward to it. I hate grinding, but I do a lot of it. It's part of the job. Alright guys, I'm back again. Okay, ring gear is off. I just took a like a cutoff wheel, and I just went and cut on all these welds. So on this outside surface here, just, you know, go over it with a file, make sure there's no burrs on it or anything, and get that nice and neat. And then same thing with this surface, make sure there's no burrs here. You know, get that nice and flat, nothing obstructing it. So the new gear, I believe, is going to press fit onto here. And let me grab that real quick. This has a little recess machine into it, so that's gonna go like this. Okay. So I'm gonna get that in position. I think probably the best way to get that in a position is I'm gonna just bolt this up to here, because this little recess portion will just sit on the outer edge here. So that should get it all nice and straight for me, so I can get it all tacked in place. You got to be precision with this because of this recess, and you know, you don't want the ring gear all wobbly and goofy. I mean, it can be a little bit. It's just a starter ring gear, but in any case, you know, mainly because of this machine lip here that's going to become part of this surface, so it needs to be flush or just a hair below this. You don't want it protruding up anywhere. So okay, I'm going to work on that and get this welded back in place. Also, I got to clean this up. It looks a little dirty. I want to make sure this is nice and clean and flat before I bolt anything to it. Alright, let's give that a shot. I guess I'll be back again. Oh, I don't remember if I mentioned this or not. I had marked, you don't have to mark the ring gear, but I marked this cover and where it oriented on here, so that when you bolt it back together, you can put it back together in the same spot. I don't think it really matters because I think each piece is balanced individually, but just in case I'm wrong about that and they balanced this as an assembly, I made marks so it can go back together exactly the way it was. And the other thing I marked out too is basically, so you leave 4 of these bolts out because that's going to bolt onto the flex plate onto the engine. And I marked which bolts were left empty so that this will go back in the vehicle exactly the way it was. I don't know if that really matters or not either, but better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to have a balance issue. Okay, I'm gonna play games with this ring gear. I will be back. Alright guys, I got this. I just bolted it on here with 4 bolts. Of course, don't tighten those right away. And then I knock this ring gear on, and the ring gear has to go down and touch the pump of the converter. So what I'm gonna do, so I'm ready to start welding this, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just go around and use a little, you know, the depth mic on the end, and I'm gonna check it, the weld and that number, and kind of go around just to make sure to see what the number should be. So like, say for example, I'll start here. If that height looks right, meaning that this is pushed down all the way, the ring gear is not kind of crowned up or something. I don't know that this ring gear is flat. It's probably not. It's probably crooked until you make it flat by putting it up against this flat surface here. So I'm gonna do one here, then, you know, I'll tack that, then I'll go stitch on the other side, tack that, you know, just kind of work my way around there until it's welded, and I know this is pretty straight and all that good stuff, and that'll be pretty much that. Alright, let me do that and I'll come back. I don't have much else to show you, but I'll show you the O-ring that goes in here, and but that's basically it. This is the hard part already done. So, alright, be right back again. Alright, all done. What I ended up doing, I added more of the studs to make sure one was in the vicinity of every one of these tack welds. And before I welded any of them, each one I checked with the dial caliper here to make sure this depth was where it was supposed to be. They were all right, like right within 5 thou of each other. I mean, it was very consistent and very good. We just want to make sure that this gear hasn't, you know, snuck up on you. It's not gonna go down too far the way we got it bolted, but it can be sticking up. It could be raised. So, and if it's raised and it won't go down, being stubborn, you can put a clamp on here. I didn't have to do that. It turned out good. And don't go crazy on the welding. You're just tack welding this thing. You don't want some poor soul to have to take off a 100 inches of weld off, say, oh, I'm gonna be really conscientious and I'm gonna weld all the way around. Oh, please don't do that. It'll end up being me that has to replace a ring gear on it one day. That's the kind of luck I have, and I don't want to do it. Bad enough grinding the tack welds off. So, okay, that's it. Pretty damn cool 70-year-old or close to 70-year-old converter and brand new ring gear on it. So that's taken care of. I'm going to take this back apart, paint everything, and put it together with the O-ring and leak test it. I have a fixture to leak test converters, which most of you guys, if you're doing this at home, aren't going to have. So you just have to hope for the best. You hate to put this in the car, especially on a Thunderbird. You have to pull the engine and transmission out as a unit. So if you have an issue here, yeah, you're going to get kicked in the seeds by the customer, or maybe by yourself if you're the one that had to pull it. So hopefully nothing goes wrong here. I don't want to fly somewhere and pull a motor for somebody. But anyways, okay, so that's it. I was going to show you that O-ring, but it's just an O-ring that goes on here. It's not a big deal. I'm going to cut this video short. All right, I appreciate you watching this. I'll do another video on the dyno test, and we'll go over that. And I won't be dynoing with this converter because it doesn't work on our dyno. I have to use a different test converter for it, so I have to get that set up and figure something out there. It's been a long time since I put one of these on the dyno. These are a little bit different with that big cast iron bell, so I have to make sure it's spaced correctly and all that. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching and supporting this channel.